Hi everyone, Carly here. So I wanted to do a quick video and it's going to be about the new ruling that's been released on, well, about council tax. So let's build on the good news, I thought. Over at Dark Matters, we like to, it's a resource platform, really, an educational resource platform, resourcing you back to yourself the way the creator intended. So I got up this morning and big shout to Richard Forbes, who we had the pleasure of interviewing for the first episode to introduce the law series, which that we have here at Dark Matters. And he was gracious enough to invite me onto his show, onto his podcast on YouTube, and we discussed etymology and all kinds of different things, the cursive spell of language. So obviously I'm subscribed. So Richard's video popped up this morning, and there's been a landmark case in relation to council tax, and it's such great news. The case was called Leighton v Bristow and Souter. Basically, this case was um, taken against enforcement agents, council tax enforcement agents. And we call them debt enforcement agents because they are private debt enforcement agents. They are a private company. They are not GB bailiffs, and they have no authority from any court in relation to the council tax collection activities whatsoever. It's never seen the inside of a courtroom. So I thought it would be cool for me to add my two pence and just add some interesting detail and case law that's all in Dark Matters. But if people, I'll turn this into a PDF, and if people want to email me, you'll find the email below. Just send me an email to info@darkmatters.contact, and I'm more than happy to send you this educational information over, shall we say. So as we know, the conduct of these enforcement officers, and again, these aren't GB bailiffs that have come from any true court, is strictly controlled, as Richard pointed out, under the Tribunals, Courts and Enforcement Act 2007, Section 12. This details that the enforcement officer must show their identity and their proof of authority from the court that entitles them to be on the premises. But again, note the language premises. This is commerce, that you are in some form of commercial activity. Your home is not a premise. And obviously we know what they do with the legal fiction. I'm not here to kind of go over that. I'm reckoning most people who find my channel are well aware of what that is. Um, but moving on. So we know via such wins as the peacekeepers had recently, where they challenged the obligation to pay it. That council tax is and always has been yet another tax and scam upon the people. And also to mention the late great Baron David Ward, who was a mentor of mine and a hero of mine, who challenged this very early on. As we know, it's commercial practice and it requires the consent of the governed. As another hero of mine, John Harris, would say, it, law is not legislation. Legislation is only given the force of law by consent. And the Baron focused heavily in his group security by way of a lien. He created many liens. One famous one against Miss Et Pie of Warrington Council, and we'll touch on that in a little bit. Who called this whole shit show out, basically, many years ago. So these wins that we can all celebrate and build upon stems from a lot of mighty men who have come and gone before us. So big shout out to everybody there. Like I say, John Harris was one of my heroes. And we know all acts, as we say, require consent to be given the force of law. And this is Black's Law Dictionary. We're not making this shit up. And we know that legislation is just the rules and regulations of corporate entities. They are not law, and there is no law requiring anybody to pay tax of any kind. If you're still paying income tax, etc., we know that unfortunately it's how the system. If you're on a pay AYE scheme, for example, then as the Baron would say, good luck getting that back. But we know that actually, apparently, allegedly, it used to say on your tax form many years ago, back in the 70s, it used to say on it that it was optional. But of course, they swiftly removed that. And as we know, the Local Government Finance Act 1992 evidences no mandatory obligation, there's that word again, obligation, to make payment towards council tax. And then in that, we can look to the Bill of Rights, which is superior statute, the Bill of Rights 1688, which says all several grants and promises made of fines and forfeitures before any conviction or judgment against the persons upon whom the same were to be levied, all which are utterly directly contrary to the known laws and statutes and freedom of this realm. And as we say, the liability order, the thing is with the liability orders, we know nothing's ever signed, as the Baron would say. Your governments have incorporated, which makes the judge the janitor at McDonald's. And this idea again of consent, the consent of the governed, there is no such thing as the general public. They are public servants. They are our servants. We have a higher status than them, and we know they use the legal fiction and the Babylonian, the Babel language of legalese to keep us under the yod, as I say. So, as we know, there's a big, huge difference, without repeating myself, between legal and lawful. And the Bill of Rights is a superior statute. This is part of our constitution. This is constitutional law, as many people think that we haven't got a constitution. I'm no expert on constitutional law, so I'm not going to go into that. I work with debt and trust law, really. But that said, what we're differentiating here between is what is lawful to what is just company policy. So these debt enforcement agents, and I deal a lot with, Marston's, Bristol and Suter, whomever, but Marston's I've seen recently have been threatening residents who haven't, get into arrears for non-payment of council tax, and saying that they can come and arrest them. So where's the source of authority that a private company could come and arrest you now for non-payment of a council tax for which you have no obligation to pay it in the first place? And of course, it requires our consent, etc., and so forth, and that they are acting ultra vires. And ultra vires literally means outside of their own authority. But again, as the Baron would say, if we don't hold them to account, and it is misfeasance at the least in public office, the Nolan principles, if you look at those of public office, and absolutely certainly, let's use the word fraud and malfeasance, which is the higher of the two. And simply by not showing, or simply by just showing instructions from the council, instructions from a council are not orders from a court. As the Baron used to say, nobody wants to take liability for the liability order. So these things don't have names on them. They don't have to actually sign for them anymore, but they do have to put a name to them, and we know that they don't. As I can tell you, the definitive court record is a copy of the court register, and we know that there is no memorandum of entry. The courts will not hold your details in relation to a summons for or a case for non-payment of council tax. This is all coming from the council, who have a handshake agreement with the clerk of the court, where they hire a private room in the court and they bulk process these cases. And we'll get into why that's completely not following their own rules, shall we say, in a little bit. So the liability orders are not being produced and or sent by any court. As we've stated, there is no case number, there is no case. And this court record will show that, which is why we utilise data subject access requests, freedom of information requests, etc., and so on, to reveal this concealment ultimately. So, as we know, liability orders, let's get back to it. Equally, there's never once been granted a liability order by a magistrate's court on this land for the non-payment of council tax ever. Only the application was granted. So a court order, as the Baron would say, is something of material substance that must comply with CPR, civil procedural rules. And it's just to note, you cannot be held in contempt of court for a civil issue, even though they like to tell you otherwise. But we know that administrative courts are all bullshit. So this must contain a court seal and the name in clear text of the judge or the magistrate issuing it. And we know that no such document or record exists because that's the service that's been requested by the council. And that's that. So just as a note, again, back to the Baron who schooled us in liens, commercialised liens. We know that when he went to Warrington Borough Council, when he got issued with a summons, etc., and he never wanted to go into the courts, because as we know, you're going into the jurisdiction. Juris means law, diction means words, and the jurisdiction is a private place of business. So the Baron turns up at Warrington Borough Council after some discourse with a woman called Miss S. Pye, and basically said a copy of a liability isn't a liability order, just like a rainbow isn't a pile of shit. And that was the Baron's humour. So again, the notice of a liability order isn't a liability order, just like a rainbow isn't a pile of shit. And basically we know what's been happening when we go into the jurisdiction, when we go into the private court places of business, which is what you want to kind of heavily avoid if you can. All fair play to Mark, is it, from the Peacekeepers, who went in and got an estoppel in equity because he took Liverpool Council to court. I think they were chasing him for £15 or something like that. And obviously he said, show me the obligation to pay it. It doesn't actually exist. So they can quote the 1992 Government Finance Act at you all that they like, but it's company policy, and it goes against the Bill of Rights and so many other things. There is a guy called Roger Hayes who actually writes now for the UK Column, or did. And if you go to UK Column website, there's some really good articles. The articles I have put in Dark Matters as well. And he challenged the council. And it's as we know, he's still corrupt. At one point, he was winning, and they literally replaced the judge to railroad him. And railroading in legal terms is just basically just a bully boy pass you anything that you say. The rule is ultimately that you cannot try a fact in a fiction, right? So if you're going to try and bring facts into a fictional court, because it's all a fiction, it's all Shakespearean. That's why acts are called acts. That's why statutes are called statutes, because it comes from the Greek statue, a dead, lifeless thing. So you're going into it's a great piece of theatre, as the Baron would say. And, this is why they wear the Saturnian robes, because it's all that nod to time and Saturn, and it's an energy harvest. And they are accessing your trust, and you are the patsy, being the legal fiction. And when they issue these warrants and summons and whatnot, they're on hook until you kind of come and cough up, basically, to pay, as trustees do, when really we are the beneficiary. But anyway, without getting into all that. So Roger Hayes went into the court and he represented his legal fiction. You can only walk into a place of fiction as a fiction. If you try and go in there as the living man, I'm a freeman of the land, etc., and so forth, they can't hear you. Yeah. So if you walk in there saying, I'm a living man, wafting your birth certificate, not in an administrative court, that isn't going to work. You can only go in as the living man and the beneficiary in a court of equity. But again, that's a separate video and a separate discussion and a separate jurisdiction. And remember, juris, law, diction, words. It's all language, and it's all a trap of words. But the judge wouldn't allow this ultimately. And he says, no, if Roger Hayes isn't in the court, then we can't continue. But obviously, Roger Hayes very skillfully pointed out that then the solicitor representing the council meant that, the plaintiff wasn't in the court. So anyway, and he allowed it. But we haven't got time to kind of go into the full detail of that. But do go and find those articles of Roger Hayes. Very, very clever guy. And the good men and women who have taken this on, who have won and who have lost, but who have done huge services for us all to expose this fraud. Another guy I should mention, Paul Patterson. He has some good books on Amazon if you want to deep dive the detail of the legal fraud here. I mean, what we're doing is, they are public servants. They have to play by their own rules. And this is this inner standing of public v private. and we want to kind of operate from the private, but use our legal fiction as a plain piece in commerce, be of the world, not in it. And again, Paul Patterson, he lays out very eloquently how he took the councils on and won, because we know that they're actually, pilfering our trusts, and if we are paying this tax, and if we aren't going to express our trust and whatnot, then, or at least on that journey as I am, then we're paying for child trafficking, human trafficking, wars. This is what they use it for, and this is the game, and it's the labyrinth against the Goblin King, isn't it? It's the I've come to take back the child that was stolen. You have no power over me. But anyway, so back to the council tax administration and enforcement regulations, sexy stuff, I know. It states that these magistrates, and magistrates comes from magi, the magician, and straight is a long body of water. They are tricksters, even if they know it or not. And they should make the order or issue the order. And nowhere does it state that the court give authority to the council to print their own orders, the liability orders. And these liability orders are being used to confirm to the bailiff, which we know, again, not a GB bailiff. These are private companies. These documents are being presented as though they are issued from a court, when we know what they're doing. Back to the beginning of the video, hiring a room, bulk listing cases in a private room, usually using a solicitor to kind of do it, really. And this agreement with the council and the clerk of the court, they are not following any civil procedural rules. Remember, they are public servants. They have to play by the rules. If we let them get away with this malfeasance and or misfeasance, then again, who's going to pull our public servants up if it isn't us? They've got away with this for too long, and we know that it's a spiritual war. We know that it's a spiritual battle. And as I always say, the journey of the law is the journey of the spirit. They are intertwined. It is a quest. And that's what we do at Dark Matters. It's know thyself. We deal in the esoteric and the occult, but we also just break all this down, break the language down, break the law of illegal down. And the site is going to get opened up soon, and it will all be for free. So just bear with me. That's happening behind the scenes. Anyway, back to the civil procedural rules. Sexy stuff. So Lord Justice Waller, in RV Leeds Justice ex parte Kennett, 1996, stated that bulk listing may comply for the council, but not the court. And this goes under the Magistrates Court Rules 1981. And applications, again, for liability orders, I'll keep repeating it, are presented in bulk, and this is unlawful. They go through Northamptonshire bulk processing centres and all sorts. So we know that really before a warrant or a summons can be issued, it should be laid before a judge, and he has to apply his mind to it. And same with the summons, everything else, he is guilty of dereliction of duty. A judge must exercise judicial function and not merely administrate. Yeah, we know that the council's processes are automatically generated. So if we're sending DSAs and we're doing, proper due process, we're staying in honour, we're keeping our court of record, because what people need to know is that the court is the paperwork. That is the court of record. The actual court is just theatre, bubbles and baubles. If you want to see my video on Christmas, go check that out. And anyway, so we need to hold them to account. They're acting outside of their own authority. They don't have the authority to do this. And we can get into how, all orders are void under void orders and all kinds of things. And I mean, it goes back to where the Queen is now, the King now, sorry, of course, King Charles, that his mother before him, they go through the coronation, which is called the arcana of time. Yeah, they go through the pomp and the ceremony, but 3 days later they actually abdicate and they take up what's called the Church of Pagan Estates. And that's exactly what Charles has done, and that's exactly what they've done. So they're not for the people by the people anymore. They are head of a corporate entity. That's what state means, lying in state when the Queen died. State means contract. And these are the things that are all starting to get revealed to people. So we know that these summons, etc., this bulk processing, no matter what we send to them, the council software is just banging it out, banging it out. And this is why then these bully boys will turn up. What we've also got is a huge breach of data. So if we've not got a proper summons and we haven't got a proper liability order, and we know that actually it's all being done behind closed doors, there's no real case, there's no court of record, there's no actual adjudication, that the judge isn't applying his mind to each and individual case, that we know it's all complete fraud. Let's face it, let's shout that one out. But it's not fraud if we join in. That's actually kind of a bit of a lawful maxim. It isn't fraud if we join in, which is why I tend to avoid that term. But in the barren sense, then when did we ever give our consent to be governed? We haven't. It's all done by trickery, even trust law, night v night. You need intention to set up a trust. But anyway, this is the game. And actually, it can play in our favour when we know how to play it. So both the council and the magistrates in this kind are acting unlawfully. And again, Regina v Brentford Justices, ex parte Cartlin, 1975. We're looking at Halsbury's laws. Now, Halsbury's laws of England, let's repeat that. The law of England states the oath does not authorise any judge or magistrate in the common law jurisdiction of England and Wales to adjudicate any hearing in which the matter is to be decided in any other way than by trial by jury. It is my understanding that demanding monies by false representation is, in fact, breach of the Fraud Act 2006. Section 2. It is my understanding that demanding monies without providing full disclosure is, again, in breach of the Fraud Act. But remember, again, is it fraud if we're joining in? We've got to kind of be aware of that. We've got to take responsibility. You know, equity will not assist a volunteer. And that's part of the equitable maxims. So section 3, it is my understanding that demanding monies without providing evidence of authority, remember, without providing evidence of authority or jurisdiction is in breach of the Fraud Act 2006, section 4. So we know under Halsbury's administrative laws that the law is absolutely clear on this, and this is the gold. There is no authority for administrative courts in this country, and no act can be passed to legitimise them. Boom. So this observance of due process of law 1368 section 3, none shall be put to answer without due process of law. And this goes for fines. When we're getting fined, parking fines or any kind of fine that's issued from a council, again, they don't have the authority to issue it. You are entitled to a trial by jury in front of your peers, and your peers aren't just people they randomly select. Those should be of people that are your peers, that are of a similar mindset, a similar constitution to you, etc., and so on. But we know that this doesn't go on. Another thing that people aren't aware of, without kind of, regging the pudding, is that of course we have guilty, not guilty, and if a jury is deciding whether you are guilty or not guilty, what has been hidden from people is that there's a little secret where they can decide something else. Juries can overturn unjust laws and or legislation, and this is called jury nullification. So this is the importance of trial by juries, that we move the jurisdiction. Can you imagine if we all just challenged the lawfulness of these fines? I mean, we would block the whole court system up, because we're all entitled. No council can issue a fines. Go back to the Bill of Rights. No fines or forfeitures, for all are equal under the law. So they have no authority to be doing this. I mean, let's go back to the fact that the Queen now is not the protector of the realm, and that she is a head of state. She is a head of corporate entity. She's a pagan Baal worshipper. And these people have no authority of us. They have the authority which we give them, and we've been labouring in our ignorance. And this due process of law is what we need to kind of bring back, and what we need to understand. We would block the whole court system up, which is obviously why they don't want us to do it. I mean, recently they've been telling solicitors not to notarise affidavits and our legal documents, or our documents, because people are starting to understand what's going on. This is the fall of Rome, people. So let's be happy about that. We know that this Roman civil system, which is the legal system, is a system of slavery on paper. We would have been physical slaves, and the Jesuit bankers, the Khazarians, the Zionists, just found a way to do it on paper, which links back to the Phoenicians and maritime. But anyway, so again, this idea that none shall be put to answer without due process of law, we know that the council have no authority to bulk process and I'll print their own summons. Now, we know that summons in legalese means invite, because you've just been invited to a private place of business where you are then represented from your Christ name, Carly, off the land and onto the maritime sea as your dead legal fiction, and into the fictional dead realms of Baal, where again the black Saturnian realms of the judge, and the nod to Saturn, Satan, Set, which is the game of time. Remember the coronation, the arcana of time, game, set, match. These lower courts, these administrative courts, are procedural. That is it, and they are unlawful. And again, if you want all this information in a PDF that I'll create, it's not legal advice. I don't give legal advice. This is just for educational and entertainment purposes only, but I'm happy to send all this over to anybody who would want it. So again, the case law that I'm quoting here and the case law that's in the PDF, the quote from the case is that before a summons or a warrant is issued, the magistrate has to apply his mind to it, else it isn't an official. It's not a legal document. It's not a lawful document. Well, the difference between lawful and legal. Lawful documents always will be on one skin. Legal documents will have loads of boxes on it, different styles of grammar on it. We'll get into that a little bit later. So again, this is a dereliction of duty of our public servants. But again, what's happened is there's a universal maxim that says, he who creates owns. And that's been inverted, like everything's been inverted in Clownland. And please do check out Carly Decode's Clown World. So there's this inversion that somehow we are the property, but we are in the jurisdiction, and that's how it works. If you've got a bank account, a passport, a driver's license, then see, jump monkey jump, do monkey do a poo on you. You're in their jurisdiction. But there's distinguished between public and private, and actually a third jurisdiction of secret, which is when we are really starting to either express the trust or collapse it. But again, I don't want to go off on too many tangents with this. But if we're not holding them to account, like I say, though, we created government, not the other way around. And it's time to take it back, which is what's happening all across the country, all across this fine England of Albion. And Albion means albino, land of the giants. Go check out my latest Clown World video, a bit more information about that. So legal precedents have been set about the extortionate fees that councils are charging also in relation to these liability orders. It actually, in fact, costs your council £3 on average to issue these liability orders, even though they have no authorities to print them themselves. And this is under the Court Fees Amendment Order 2014, Section 4.1. And the councils are adding these ridiculously unjustifiable costs onto these orders, and basically abusing the legislation of the Council Tax Administration Regulations 1992, Section 34. This is the boring bit, which states they can charge a sum of an equal amount to the costs in obtaining the order, £3, and they're charging hundreds, depending on where you are in the country. That will change. And they have to adhere to statutes, and they have to basically just play by their own rules. But if we're not making them, then we've got the shit show that we've got. But they are railroading people as well. I've seen it in real time. So where they're charging these ridiculous, it's a racket, and it's one of the biggest rackets that's been going, as we know. Downing Street, 10 Downing Street, I'm no historian, but this is where criminals used to go and swap their words. If you actually look into the history of Downing Street, number 10, it's a criminal mafia, and we know that that's what the banking cartel is. And like we said, just to hammer it home, administrative courts are private places of business. All governments have incorporated. The judge becomes the janitor at McDonald's. He has no authority over you other than the authority that we walk in our ignorance and give them. When we walk into a court, yeah, and we have a solicitor or a barrister, which is all of the bar society, then we are declaring ourselves a lunatic and an imbecile before the court. And this is why, we are wards of the court, we are wards of the state. We don't know what's going on. Help us, please. And in trust law, we're classed as naughty children under the doctrine of parens patre. And we aren't declaring our estates. We're not discharging debt. We're not offsetting. And this is the mindset that we need to change. And all this stuff, as I say, is in Dark Matters, but the whole site's being redone, and it will all be online Zooms, educational resource platform where all this is going to be free for people. So, yeah, remember that all these governments and there's have incorporated. And there is a doctrine called the Clearfield Doctrine, and it is the case of the Supreme Court Clearfield Trust Co. v. United States, 1943. When the state or government enters commercial business, it abandons its sovereign capacity, and it is to be treated like any other corporation. So the Clearfield Doctrine is a very important doctrine, and it strips whomever council, let's say Manchester Council, of its government cloak and any protection that it offers. The government, as we know, has been trading arms on the securities market for many years using our council tax. And you can, again, do your homework, do your due diligence, don't just listen to me. But the Clearfield Doctrine is of huge import. If we're allowing this to happen, and we know that council tax all goes into Citibank, which is an American bank, and we're doing some great work in relation to that, I'm not going to say anymore, come find me, to perhaps these trusts that are kept in our national insurance number names and so on and so forth. If we're not taking it back, then they are going to utilise it. And perhaps going into how they utilise it and how they can actually still cream off the dead. They can still access at least the interest of those trusts. It's unfathomable the amount of wealth that they strip from us. It really, truly is. And people can't begin to fathom. I mean, we checked one guy's trust in the group and it was 73 million. That's just one example. Some are more, some a bit less, some are triple, quadruple. It's a lot. And what people don't realise is that the national debt, us keep paying debt with debt, is actually the money that's owed back to us, among lots of other things as well. But again, I digress. So, under the Terrorism Act 2000, fundraising for terrorists, that's basically what we're doing. We're allowing this to happen. I've said it in some of my esoteric interviews on the main podcast. What is evil? Evil is when good men and women say and do nothing. It comes from our shadow. It comes from the thing that we're not saying about ourselves. And this is all being brought to light. Are we in the age of Aquarius? I think that's what it is. I'm no astrologer, though I find it fascinating. And as I say, get into numerology. Numbers don't lie. Narratives do. Anyway, so, and again, for those saying, well, that's a US case, Carly, foreign case law, what's that got to do with us? You've got to remember, like Sasha Stone said in the interview that's out on this Tuesday, stay tuned. I thought Boxing Day would be appropriate because he is a hard hitter. All law stems from English law. So, yeah, the City of London, or baby London, Babylon, is responsible for this shit show, as Sasha would say. And the use of foreign case and comparative law is a case called Fairchild v. Glenhaven Funeral Services Limited, 2002. Apparently, its use of foreign law, though, a little bit criticised, we can use it. And there's quite a few cases that I've got in the PDF that referred to American law and it was accepted, German law and it was accepted. So for those people saying, Carly, that's a lot of books, it's not. So I realise this is a much meatier video. And again, I woke up, don't like to say woke, but I got up this morning, watched Richard's awesome video, and he's doing such an amazing job. Yeah, I mean, and really kind of getting this information as a crossover, yeah, is just is fantastic. And it is a quantum monkey tip. It's tipping. It's the it's spitting. It's tipping. It is. And the quantum monkey, for those that don't know, was one island, and a group of monkeys ate these nuts. And one day, one monkey went and washed them in the sea and salted his nuts. And he thought, oh, these taste a lot better. And so all the monkeys on that island started to do the same thing. Now, they didn't have emails, and they couldn't write to each other, and they couldn't text, and there was no Zooms. But the monkeys, thousands of miles away, of the same species, started to do the same thing. And it is frequency. And say I've got a really high frequency of 700. I mean, literally, I'd be like, getting ready to pop off the planet. But the higher, well, the higher quality of our frequency, of those that are aware, that do have the wisdom. I mean, I'm not saying I have the wisdom every day, all day of my life, but then that will tip, that will go out there, and it will raise everybody else. Not everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but enough of us, and it is happening. And I'm always very positive about that. As much negative in the spiritual law they want to chuck at us. It's like Schwabi, isn't it? He's like, Agenda 2030 will eat the bugs. Move it up, speed it up, let's bring it forward. They're wanting to bring it forward because it ain't washing. And let's face it, in scripture, which is a script, we win. It's just, we've got to, hold the line. And anyway, back to the law. Another piece of legislation, the Government Act 1888, local government, not the Local Government Finance Act, but the Local Government 1888, an incorporation of a council. So if a council incorporates, and we know that they're all registered on Dun & Bradstreet, or were, because they've started to hide it, because again, we're all starting to become aware of it and finding the VAT numbers and whatnot. The under section 79, and look this one up, it's very important to your court of record and your evidence. Remember, he who makes the claim has to provide the material evidence, biggest maxim in law. Yeah. So it is, all duties and liabilities of the inhabitants of a county shall become and be duties and liabilities of the council of such country, where any enactment, etc., requires or authorizes, etc., and so forth. So what that means in a nutshell is, under their own rules, if a government has incorporated, and we all know that these councils are bankrupt, which actually means that if a council's bankrupt, they can't come after you for debts. So look into that one. That's a huge piece. I should have perhaps added a bit more about this, but I can add it to the PDF. Leave that one with me. That basically, once they've incorporated, any liabilities of the people become the liabilities of the council. So, if that doesn't, I can't really make that any clearer. So I think you're all getting where I'm going with this. The devil is in the detail, as I say. That's where that old adage comes from. And if you want to learn more about who old Saint Nick is, then again, watch Carly Does Clown World 3. I've just uploaded that the other day. So all of this that's going on, again, let's look at it in a bit of a linear way. What's happening is, then we've got breaches of data and data protection, because the council have been given your information and they hold your information on trust. Now, if they've took you through all these procedures, summons, fake liability orders, right, then there's no real authority for that enforcement agent to be at your doorstep. I mean, and let's get back to the new case. They've said that if this enforcement agent hasn't provided you before they turn up with the correct documentation, then you can sue them for £4,000, or up to 4,000, was it? I have to check that, but let's just say £4,000. And turning up on your doorstep and wafting just some piece of paper from the council saying, "Ooh, the council told us." Well, did Bob just ring? It's the same with debt and debt companies. Did Bob from HSBC Bank just ring up Jim from just trying to think of it one, PRA, and say, "All right, Jim, can you just deal with this for me?" "All right, yeah, I'll sort that out." You then get a letter trying to contract with you. "You owe us this money." It's the same. Was the data breaches are abound? Yeah, they've not assigned that debt over correctly. Just as the council have given no real authority to this private company to turn up, and they've handed all your information over to them. Right. So then we can get them on data breaches as well, utilising data subject access requests, GDPR, FOI, freedom of information. Think about this case that you're going to build against the council. It's what I try and show people, and just like I say, it's for educational purposes. I'm not here to do it for you or any kind of legal advice, but just for us to be aware of what the law is, what the legislation is. Awareness is better than awakeness, if that's even a word. So they've no right to be passing your data about willy-nilly. And what's always happening in trust law is the concealment, as I say, that you are the beneficiary. And that actually all these, the council tax, your utilities, credit card companies, bankers, they are all just agents of the security trustee. The security trustee is the Bank of England, who are offering you services. And really, we should be going, right, there's my gas, there's my electric, blah, blah, blah. Right, I'm going to discharge that and offset that. If you pay debt with debt, that brings up the national debt, and then you don't know who you are, and you're acting in the role of trustee. But again, I'll do a different video on that. We don't want to kind of confuse things. And just as a few other little points, because I realise, if you followed me this long, as I always say, hold on, there is also no duty to disclose your residency. So there's no duty of disclosure to notify the council that you've moved into a new property. It doesn't exist. There was a case called RV EWCA, was it? I think 209. And the Court of Appeal ruled that basically that there is no duty that exists to tell the councils and or give them your information. As we know, resident means in Black's law temporarily residing there to do business. Well, your home isn't a place of commerce, is it? Your home isn't a place of business. So, you actually, the classes as fully being registered at the City of London, but you reside in the City of Manchester, for example. And of, in legal terms, actually means without. So it's a sneaky trick. So City of Manchester means city without Manchester. Because remember, they don't want you with the soles of your feet on the land. They want you as a fiction in maritime, bobbing about over there. So you're in their jurisdiction. And just as a finisher, and I won't kind of labour on this too much, but when we get these documents, like I said earlier, there's a huge difference between a lawful document and a legal document. You'll know if you look at your bills, and this is why you get a bill going through Parliament, because it's a charge. A bill is a charge on your energy, on your time, because it's all about time and energy, that debt slavery. And when we look at these documents, they'll be boxed, anything boxed on these bills, and you'll know actually you will never get a bill. You'll never get a water bill or a gas bill or an electricity bill. It will be a statement of account, because if you were a beneficiary, you can discharge a bill, but you can't discharge a statement of account. However, just as a little tip, I have seen true bills. They'll come with a giro slip, which actually used to be called bank giro checks. And that's actually the instrument to discharge the debt. But we don't know. And we were told by our parents, our grandparents. I always remember my nana going to the post office with a giro slip, but putting a check with it. And it's just another double dip, triple dip of how they dip our trust. We pay them with our equity, and they are just pilfering us on the Securities Exchange. And again, not going into that in this video, but so it is this awareness of how all this works, and it's a beautiful thing that it is really tipping, and I really do believe that it is. But back to the document, as we know, if it's boxed, if it's got basically two different grammatical structures on the one document, it's fraud in itself. You'll get the all caps dead fiction, yeah. Then you'll get bold numbers, then you'll get lowercase, you'll get numbers, algebra on there. So what is the correct interpretation of this document? You know, it's babble, ultimately. Said that loudly, didn't I? Babble, which is Babylon. Babble. Um, it's not on the page. The four corner rule, it's not there. And this is this fact v fiction that we've got to get our heads around, you know. And in the courts, you know, this is why they'll railroad you, because you can't try a fact in a fiction. It's all fiction. It's the corporate rules and policies and codes. You know, we are not cargo or things. Maritime literally means sea of time. And again, watch all my other videos if you want to know about how time condenses matter to a slow vibration so that we can experience this realm. You know, we are spirit. And part of this game, or their game, is for us to breathe life back into our vessel. And this is why, you know, they decapitated us, you know, the Capitus Maximus, the all caps, the dog Latin. And you know, this is why, and I've said this before, it's one of my favourites, this is why we have just our heads on passports, because they're decapitating us. They're taking us away from the land, which is our body. Israel is the sons and daughters of the Creator. So we are it. We are the thing. The kingdom is within. And you know, people will say, "Oh, they call you a common law lawyer," or they'll talk about the common law of the land. But when we really break it down, as the Baron would say, what is law? It's 12 presumptions of law, and the system runs on presumptions, assumptions, tacit, and hearsay. And what that means is fiction. It rests on fiction, and even the common law. Well, when did you agree to it, really? You know, and all right, we can all say, you know, about natural law, etc. But look at nature, as you know. I had this conversation with Sasha Stone out Tuesday, and nature's quite cruel. You know, lions ripping gazelles' legs off, and you know, and it says in scripture, when lambs lay down with lions, then we're truly getting back to our true nature. And we can see this a lot with different species now. You'll see, you know, dogs hugging parrots and all kinds of stuff. I mean, I'm going off on a tangent now and I'll stop. But I think you get what I'm saying. And, you know, we've got to learn the serpent tongue and use it against them. And all of this is what's happening. And there's some great people out there doing great things. And like I say, the common law itself even means to obligate, to burden. So even that is a Roman construct, the commoners, the common law. This all stems from Rome. And this is the fall of Rome, my friends. And this has taken maybe thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years in the making, you know, for us to remember who we are and our true history. But I don't want to kind of go off too much on, like I say, too many tangents, which I am very able to do. So I think I'll leave it there. I just wanted to add some more meat to the bones. And again, I'll put some links down to some people that I think are worth checking out underneath here. And as I say, if anybody does want this PDF of notes I've just whipped up, I'm more than happy to send it out to people. And I'll put the email below. And just as another note, check out the law series. We've had some great guests on there so far. We've had Richard Forbes to introduce it, which was brilliant. Then we had Pete Stone from the Sovereign Project. He's a really cool guy doing some really good work. Real ability to just break this down very simply for people. And then we had Paul Yates from Debt Ninjas, a lovely guy. Do check that one out. Doing some great work with debt, as are we. And our next guest is going to be Andy and Rich, potentially, from The Goodism, which is all about quantum grammar, postal mechanics, and they're doing some great work at the moment with travel bonds and trusts, and basically just placing people out of the system into the private and giving them that protection if you can and want to wrap your head around it. So stay tuned for that one. Please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this, because I'm going to do a lot more of these. I'm going to try and do what I call law shorts. I'm going to be working with a really good friend of mine, Aidan, Aidan Bailey, hope he doesn't mind me saying. And we're going to put some law courses together, Law of Mankind, varying things. So some really good stuff coming with the law series and the main series and the site in general. As a bit of a plug on a last note. So please, yeah, please do like and subscribe and share if you find it of any interest in. So it's good night for me. And it's good night for me, apart from that it is the afternoon. Anyway, kind of get my drift.